What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Too Much to Watch. I am your host, Sean. Today, I'm going to have another quite topical, right on point conversation regarding an older movie, but something I've been thinking about for a while. With an interview recently that came to light, and conversation is gonna be about the Last Jedi. So obviously pretty well documented what has happened with the Star Wars franchise since Disney took it over. Specifically in the movie arena, not so much TV, because it seems like Disney and Lucasfilms are pretty much hitting the TV section out of the park with The Mandalorian, the Clone Wars extra season, the Bad Batch out now. Some of the stuff coming up with the Book of Boba Fett and some other shows coming out. So it seems like the TV side being run by Favreau and Filoni seem to be doing well. But obviously the movies are pretty well documented of somewhat a controversial within the Star Wars community. If you go back on this channel, I did a discussion about The Rise of Skywalker. I don't feel the Rise of Skywalker is a perfect movie by any means. But it was fun. Should it have been the ending of a massive franchise, 40 plus year franchise in Star Wars? Maybe not. Was the apparent Colin Trevorrow script seems to have read much better than what was put on screen. Absolutely. However, I still felt it was fun. I'm somewhat of a Star Wars apologist. Sue me. But in specifically talking about The Last Jedi, obviously critics heralded the movie, fans pretty much trashed it. And for some reasons that I feel, specifically to me, that The Last Jedi is one of the best movies in the entire movie franchise. I wouldn't put it ahead of Empire, of course, but it's definitely within the top three for me. And and most of the reasons are, and I'm sure this has been talked about on the internet. I just been thinking about this lately. An interview happened recently with JJ Abrams where he essentially admitted that there wasn't a cohesive storyline for this last trilogy to end the Skywalker saga. Obviously, if you're up on it, JJ Abrams directed the Force Awakens. They kind of went the Marvel route and handing off the directing reins to different directors. Next in line was Rian Johnson, and of course, early on, the third in the trilogy was going to be directed by Jurassic World's Colin Trevorrow. He dropped out, what I believe was for creative reasons, and if you've seen some of what he put out as far as a leaked script, definitely a lot of changes to there's definitely some creative difference issues or according to what we got versus what was on paper for him. But in trying to replicate the Marvel formula of handing the directors off, what Marvel had that apparently Lucasfilm didn't in putting this trilogy together was a cohesive vision. Kevin Feige, for all intents and purposes, had a pretty lengthy vision of how the MCU was going to go. You put it in the hands of directors, let them do different things, but as long as you're staying with the crux and the theme of what they're trying to do. It seems like Lucasfilm didn't have that, so when they give it to JJ Abrams and then they hand the reins to Rian Johnson to make The Last Jedi, it was definitely going to be something that was going to be either controversial or hard to swallow. JJ Abrams is a very good director. I kind of always say like my generation's or the next generation, Steven Spielberg, the big budget sci-fi action movies. Rian Johnson is a little more conceptual, a little more artistic when it comes, and it shows in The Last Jedi. Some of the things that people hated, I loved in The Last Jedi. I'm just going to put it out there. In kind of thinking about it, I had about 4 different sections in which I really thought, or 3 to 4 sections or things that I thought made this movie what I really was excited to see, hopefully, that Star Wars was going to go. One of which, the main crux of the story with Kylo and Rey, is letting the past die. For 40 plus years, we've followed the Skywalker saga. It's called the Skywalker saga. It feels as if the entire galaxy is centered around this bloodline of people. And it was, to me, incredibly refreshing to hear "Let the Past Die." The idea, and this is heavy spoilers. It's been out for like 4 or 5 years, so uh, but having Rey not have a lineage in that movie, obviously they retcon that and they give her a lineage in Rise of Skywalker, related to some of the main characters throughout the Star Wars universe. But initially saying like you're a nobody, and yet she's one of the most powerful Jedi we've seen, and just hasn't honed her skills yet. But she's incredibly powerful. To have other Force sensitive wielding people out in the galaxy, perhaps either hidden away, or after Order 66, even after the Empire has fallen, to still either not know that they're sensitive, or to have them hidden away, whatever the case may be, to know that there are other people out there that have these powers, and not just the Skywalker line or the Palpatine line, to me was incredibly refreshing. Rey or Kylo obviously having a bloodline of Leia, but basically the chaotic supreme leader, who's incredibly conflicted. Obviously, we know that Vader is conflicted in the main in the main three, and throughout that. But really, towards the end, we find he's conflicted, and obviously his last action with throwing the Emperor over to the side was showing his, kind of come to Jesus, if you will, his realization of family over power. But Kylo, throughout this entire saga at this point, is conflicted about what he's done to his father. They find out what happened with him and Luke. So a much more emotional, much more chaotic supreme leader, a little more emotional to let his emotions get the best of him, versus a very calculated plan to take over the galaxy, was really refreshing. I think him taking down Snoke, everybody was so worried about who Snoke was, and it didn't necessarily matter. We got the realization through Force Awakens and through most of the Last Jedi that Snoke was very powerful. He's connected these two, but that we find that Kylo Ren is more powerful. It could have been left at that. But to know that Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker was over is a little bit of a letdown. And when you're introducing these ideas that really Star Wars hadn't seen, through the original three, through the prequels, it just kind of had this line of like, we just have to follow these people, and it was kind of forging, to me, The Last Jedi was forging this new path to where the Star Wars could have gone, especially at the ending with the young child on Canto Bight that is able to kind of pull the broom. He could have, we could have had him have the next 4 or 5 trilogies, whoever he was, working alongside Rey to take down different villains through the galaxy. So I really thought that was something that I wish didn't get retconned. I wish would have stayed, and it was nice to see something new there. Probably just as more, and this one actually probably is more controversial to me, or to the fandom, is Luke's attitude, and Luke's demeanor in this one. Very much this hashtag, "This isn't my Luke," or things like that were kind of thrown around the internet, about Luke being, very jaded. Let me ask you, why wouldn't he be jaded? He's been in hiding. His nephew, he's training another set of Jedi. His nephew, of all people, becomes the supreme leader. He's seen and done so many things. He has a life of essentially, isolation, and he doesn't connect with his sister anymore. He's, and the Jedi have failed. The Jedi is a failing group. Why would he be the Luke that you remembered from, Empire and Return of the Jedi and the New Hope? He wouldn't be. You wouldn't be. So to say that like Luke couldn't be this way because he's the Last Jedi, it's not really the Last Jedi, but he, at the time, he's the Last Jedi. Yeah, I'd be that way too, and I think all of us would. It's a natural progression of a person. Just because he's the Last Jedi, he's got no one to train. He's left on an isolated island. He everything around him has crumbled. The Jedi have crumbled. Everything he knows is fallen apart and failed. He's a failure. in his mind, yeah, I'd be a little upset too. And to think that, your own family, that you were going to potentially kill your own family, and then he tries to kill you, and now his only goal is to kill you. That would be disheartening as to a person too. So, not so much that it was refreshing to see that, but it just seemed natural that as the most positive person in the world has to have a day in which they're not so positive, right? That just seems to be a natural progression, and I think it would be kind of silly to have Luke just be the same old Garsh, a happy-go-lucky Jedi that saves the world. It just doesn't seem, reasonable to me. Him throwing away. I know everybody was so offended by him throwing the lightsaber when Rey gives it to him. Like, yep, I would too. Get it away from me. Again, these are just my opinions, but I feel like this movie introduced a lot of great things. And the last thing to me that I thought was really extremely interesting to think about was not so much Canto Bight itself. We through the movie we have Rose and Finn go to essentially a casino planet to extract a code breaker in Benicio del Toro, who I thought was incredibly underutilized, by the way. So they go to this planet, and what we learn is that they're incredibly rich, incredibly powerful people on this planet, and the idea of the politics behind the galaxy, in a few kind of lines that Del Toro kind of conveys to Finn and Rey, or Finn and Rose, the idea that the war and the wars have been funded by the same people. The money flows to both the Resistance and the First Order. How do you think people get these ships? Like, kind of opening up more politics than just like, supreme leaders or senators and things like that. Like, the actual like kind of seedy underbelly of how these ships get made. How they enjoy war continuing, the uprisings, the overthrows of government and galaxy altering empires. I think that people, we didn't really ever understand that. People just had ships. Resistance fighters just had ships. Or rebels just had ships. Empires or First Orders just had ships. All these massive things. Where do they come from? And so I think they could have expanded on that a little bit more. Obviously, we get the kind of the saving of the animals. I thought Canto Bight was a little in that movie was a little misguided. I think that section it really just essentially becomes this like, let's release the animals. These rich people suck, and let's get this guy off the planet. But I think they could have expanded a little more in that. Maybe not so much on Canto Bight, but really kind of that the franchise could have gone a little bit of a different way with a little more of that knowledge, maybe a little more of that fleshed out. So I don't want to keep rambling on. I do think that I am a Star Wars apologist. I've said that in previous videos. I've said that here today. But I really think that The Last Jedi is one of the best movies in the franchise. It opened up some doors and some ideas that unfortunately got shelved, with the kind of the not so much the critical response of Last Jedi, and then of course subsequently Solo a couple months later, that it seemed like Lucasfilms and Disney had to right the ship. They couldn't lose any money. We have to give the fans what they want. The fans just want space wizards with light swords, and unfortunately I think it kind of suffers when it seems as though business decisions were made to keep the franchise where it was. So unfortunately I think that the entire trilogy I do enjoy watching. I won't do a video on The Force Awakens. I don't think there's really too much controversial there, other than I love the movie. I think it's great. I do think it's almost a carbon copy of A New Hope, controversial or not. I just don't think there's a video there. But I did want to get my thoughts out on the idea that this movie, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying in the Rise of Skywalker video, if you do go watch that. But basically, Star Wars fans, we tend to want to trash a lot of some ideas, a lot of things. We don't necessarily always know what we want. We know what we don't want, and that kind of can sometimes be a death sentence for movies and things like that. So I do think you should listen to fans when making these things. I think these movies are made for fans. Most of these action, sci-fi, superhero comic book movies are made for fans. But if you have a vision and you stick with it and it's cohesive enough, people will follow. I think there's a lot of good that could have come out of The Last Jedi into Rise of Skywalker, and I think almost that vision. Lucasfilms could also take, not just on the side of Filoni and Favreau on the TV side, but even this book series of the High Republic, which I'll admit I'm still working on and reading. But that idea was very much like all these authors and everybody came together for a vision. They're giving the books to different authors and comics and kind of young adults and a main storyline, but with all this central vision of what the High Republic was supposed to be leading up into things down the road. But even there, and I feel like Lucasfilm just kind of put out a franchise just to kind of, let's get Star Wars out to the public again. We're going to do what we want to do. Oh, people don't like it. People are upset. It's, oh my goodness, Solo lost money. We have to go back to what we know, and that's Palpatine. That's everybody's related to somebody within this galaxy. So it's kind of what I wanted to say. I feel like they could right the ship down the road. I think they've maybe seen some mistakes they've made. Giving the next movie to Taika Waititi to me is an incredibly a smart move. Very talented director, funny. He could bring a lot of good stuff to whatever he's working on. So we're hoping, down the road we'll get something good out of there. So this video's gone on a little too long. I understand that. I just wanted to get my thoughts out about those ideas that I really felt made this one of the best movies in the franchise. I hope they continue to do some of the things again that they're doing with the books and with the TV shows, and maybe they can kind of replicate that. But that's all I have. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment what you thought of The Last Jedi, what you think of this video. I'm open to hearing all those thoughts. I thank you for taking some time out today to sit with me and hear me ramble about a 4-year-old movie. But I really do love it, and I hope that it gets some of the fan appreciation that I think this movie deserves down the road. Again, like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.